Hey everybody joining, we'll be there shortly. Hey, I wish you guys could see me, y'all. I always be doing the most.
Okay, I'm here. I'm just in the cut right now. We wanted to just let the picture be static and sit there and kind of let people feast their eyes on that. And while you're looking, just what does that picture represent to you? What does that look like? How does that make you feel even? Yeah, we got a good topic tonight. It came up kind of out of the blue, but what was I say? Something like, it's submission power.
Yeah, we were talking about it in bed.
Yeah,
that's usually where we have our conversation.
In my mind, had some thoughts, had to run it by her. She agreed, turned into a pretty good dialogue, and we decided we're gonna go ahead and get into that a little bit with y'all. So while we'll give it 2 or 3 more minutes, maybe.
Is submission power? That is the question of the night. I will be interested to hear what people have to say.
I think y'all know what I'm gonna say. Yeah, and didn't Cam Newton get cut up over this? Well, they tried to get at him this week because I thought what he said was actually extremely thoughtful.
I thought what he said was really good. And actually, you know what? And that makes a good point. I will pull up for our discussion what Cam Newton had to say that had the internet going crazy and Brittany Renner responding because she didn't like what he had to say. Because unfortunately, women get triggered by men saying the type of women they want. I feel like, you know what I'm saying? Like, women can say whatever men they want.
Shade.
Yeah, they can say that. So we're coming on, guys.
Y'all are kind of like that, though, now that I'm thinking about it.
Hello, everybody. No, I do feel, let me turn this music down. I do feel like women feel as if we have the right to say what we want, but how dare a man ever dare say what they want. But before we go into this topic, what's going on, everybody? What is going on in people's life? We have been busy this week, right, babe? Well, you've been busy. Well, I guess if you're busy, I'm busy.
Yeah. Life's happening quickly. Got a lot going on. I don't want to jinx myself or nothing, so I'll delay any notifications until I got some news, positive or negative.
Well, I'm going to say something where most people, if you're new to us, welcome. Thank you for joining. Since we're talking about is submission powerful, this is a statement I proudly say. And funny enough, Nanny said it to me today without even prompting, where I proudly say that Rob is my job. And Nanny, as I was telling her what's kind of going on, Nanny's my best friend, everybody, one of my best friends, and I was filling her in kind of what's going on in our lives and things are moving, and she said, well, Rob's your job. And for her, she said it not like as my best friend, like, God forbid, like, what are you doing with your life, your man, your job? But she was very proudly, and because she also has a man who is moving, grooving, and has his own business, and he's doing a lot. And even though she's a realtor, she's kind of got that flexibility to make him a priority. And I think a lot of women would consider that submission. But for me, it's powerful because for a lot of people, I orchestrate a lot of stuff that goes on in his life and in his home. And again, he's still the final decision maker, but I'm very proud when I tell people you're my job. There's a lot of power in that.
Is there a difference between independent and autonomous?
Independent is alone.
Right.
Right? Like, I get anytime you're independent of something, that means you're not attached to something. It means alone. And so, good luck with alone.
Yeah, I think women mistake independent with being autonomous and self-sufficient and things of that nature way too often. Can you be submissive to a man and still be autonomous?
Absolutely.
You can still be doing your own thing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do my own thing all the time. But my own thing also benefits what goes on in this house.
It can't be conflicting with my thing. And then we start to have issues.
And I think that's what Cam was trying to say this week. And later, if you guys haven't not heard about the controversy with Cam Newton, we will go ahead and I'll play it on my phone. I'll find it. But I think that's the interesting thing. And we wanted to put this picture on because I think when people hear the word submission, they almost think bondage and slavery and all of that. There's nothing in the black community for black women.
Nothing positive about it.
They think this, which for me, this is okay at night. But that's another story, and later on I tell all about it. I'm perfectly fine with that too. But I think we need to talk about this. And so, here's the thing. There's a lot of things, again, let's talk about the week in our life. If you don't know, I think I've said this, but Rob's in finance. We're kind of orchestrating the next move in his career. And I said when we're orchestrating, this is something we do together. We sit down, we have a discussion, and we say, what's next? What does the next 3 to 5 years look like, and how do we get there? And once we have that discussion, I generally am the one behind the scenes ensuring that it happens, and Rob shows up to wherever he needs to show up. And that's a lot of power on my behalf, right? And so this week, the week's not even over, and you've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 interviews this week.
Yeah,
all of which I orchestrate.
For real, she's my executive administrator. I don't say that with no shade, with no nothing. I'm saying that because without her, a lot of stuff wouldn't be done as neatly and cleanly and precisely as with her. And that makes me a better, stronger man because of that. And that's the part that I think is that's lost and misled with this whole submission is bad and you submit, he gonna kill you and all this other stuff is that, what's the saying, don't do wife duties unless you're a wife or something along those lines. Well, that's not 100% accurate, I don't think, because I think if you're actually doing wife duties before you're a wife, that dude would be an idiot to not make you his wife.
But the thing...
let me finish.
Go ahead.
But y'all mistake girlfriend things as wife things, and baby mama things as wife things, and those things are not. A wife submits to her husband. That's kind of the definition of the whole situation. And I think we've reinvented that so much to the point where women sound like men in their role and their dynamic in the relationship and wonder why it's off balance. Because eventually a man is going to become resentful of not being the head of his household.
But let me ask a question, and it's really a statement. I'm asking a question to the audience, but I think it gives a statement to you. Every stage of a relationship is an audition, right?
Yeah.
The dating stage is an audition to be exclusive. I don't even know how this thing works anymore because I feel like I'm old and there's all these different stages. So let's assume I'm right. So dating to exclusivity to girlfriend to cohabitation or wife, whichever one comes first, right? Everything is an audition. So just like when you are auditioning for a new job, because that's what you do. When you want to move up the ranks, what do? You've got to stand out from everybody else that also wants that position, especially when there's only one. There can only be one legally, there can only be one Mrs. in your life, right? And so if that is the case and a woman wants that job, she has to stand out from everyone else that's also trying to audition for that role. And so, again, it's let the best person win, just like for the job. When you go in for the interview, again, he has 6 interviews this week. Like, this is not by accident. It's because he is attractive to these companies. And he's going there, and it's just as much as he's auditioning, they're auditioning for him. Can we fit what you want? Some of them are concerned of, well, can we pay him enough? Is this too junior? Are we giving you enough response? Like, there's all these different concessions that jobs will make for you when you're the right fit, just like a man. He will do things when you're the right fit.
Now, how many interviews would I have if I said it costs $200 to $400 to interview me?
Zero.
How many interviews would I have if I kick my feet up like, tell me why I should work for you?
Zero. Well, you would. That would be the end of the interview. If you started the interview with "Tell me why I should work for you," they'd say, "Thank you very much, Robert." Like, next. They don't know.
How many interviews would I have if I refuse anything other than chief something officer?
Even though you didn't qualify. Not many.
Okay. You see where I'm going?
No, and I know what you're talking about, because we're watching a clip today. It's a lady girl from 8 at the Table. I think her name is Danny Deuces. And she was basically saying, I'm going to paraphrase, you guys can find it. Basically, broke ends, because I don't like that word, broke men need not apply. Because in her mind, an average date, what she says, about $200 to $400. And so if you don't have $200 to $400, why are you even dating? And she went through this whole, I actually stopped listening after a while because I was just like, this is just ridiculous. I don't even understand what is going on. But she feels that every man that takes her out, they should be budgeting $200 to $400. Let me just be clear, and I'm going to tell you how I used to date, and still do, even in a relationship, and Rob can attest to that. So here is how I am a dater, and I've gone on some amazing dates. This is what I do. I would go to the restaurant, of course. I will give you 98% of my dates, men have paid. I had one guy who told me that I would remember him, so I needed to go Dutch. So he put like an amount, and there was only a small amount left for me to pay, but I was like, he's like, but you'll remember me, because men always want to give you something, so I'm memorable. Clearly never went out with him again. But that's another story. So 98% of the men that I have gone out with have paid. How I go about things is, number one, I'm not a big drinker. I've never been a big drinker. I didn't actually have my first alcoholic beverage until I was 26. And I don't drink in work settings. That's always been a rule. It doesn't matter. If someone insists, I might have a little sparkling champagne or something, but I'm just not a big drinker. And I consider dating almost a work setting. Again, it's an audition. So when we go to the restaurant, we look at the menu. I inquire what the man is having. And I actually get something that's cheaper than he's getting. I don't see it as an opportunity for me to be like, cha-ching, we're going to Morton's. I'm getting surf and turf, and I'm going to get this most expensive bottle of Moscato. I'm going to do that. I get something cheaper. I'll say, hey, Rob, what are you going to get? What looks good on the menu? And then he says something, and then I scan the menu. I already have a couple of ideas of things that I like, but whatever he gets, I get something cheaper. I never bring up drinking. If he says, would you like a bottle of wine? I always explain, I'm not a big drinker, not a wine connoisseur. If you're drinking, what do you recommend? I know that I like, white or Moscato or so forth. I also only have one glass. There are certain rules that I've always had about dating. And he can attest to that because I still have those rules even in our relationship. The difference in our relationship is we share food, so he'll get whatever. But my meal's still always less expensive than yours. I think always it's been less expensive than yours. And when we're drinking, he's usually the one like, babe, let's just get a bottle and get it done. And usually, again, he's pouring. And again, we're in a relationship, so it's different. But he'll never see me drunk. He'll never see me. Again, this is not submission. This is not obedience. This is not me, whatever. But I just think that there's certain way that we conduct ourselves when we are auditioning for the role to be in someone's life. Just like he's auditioning, like as women, what is the man doing when he pays? Auditioning as well to be in your life. The more means a man has, the better your dates are. I have had, amazing dates that the bill comes up to $500, $600, $700, and like the man has no problems paying for it because he's auditioning. I think every date is, I've said this, every date is a down payment on sex. So of course he wants to get, the goodies, but that is what dating is. And I think that there's certain rules and there's a certain delicate dance that you do in dating, but everything will eventually lead to, I think, submission, because you can't have two leaders. And just for the people, I actually came prepared this week, and I want to show the difference between the definition of submission and obedience, because I thought this was important, because I think people think about the fact that submission means obedience, and submission and obedience are two different things. And I found this amazing little thing of the difference, so we're going to talk about it. What is the difference between submission and obedience? Obedience is following orders, commands, or instructions. Obedience does not guarantee a person's willingness to comply with orders. It is a reaction to a command where the individual has little choice to reject or oppose the authority, right? So when you are being obedient, it's generally you do not have a choice. Who's obedient in our lives? Our children. Our children are taught to be obedient to us, because I'm going to know about phone a picnic, but my picnic doesn't get choices running around like, I'm not going to do that because I have free will. Well, free yourself out of this house. So our children are expected to be obedient, right? Now, submission. Submission is yielding to power or authority. In submission, a person has respect and love for those in power. Unlike in obedience, where the individual succumbs to power merely as a reaction to power, in submission, the individual's reaction is guided by genuine desire to follow instructions.
Very powerful. I could spend a whole Saturday breaking that down on the differences. And let's just get into the logic a little bit of why they're different. With obedience, it's difficult for an adult to be obedient to another adult. You usually see that in the military, where it's rank and file, where it's look. And even there's an implied understanding that those giving orders are not putting those taking orders in harm's way.
Correct.
The same thing with your children. There's an implied understanding that you're not going to do things to get your kid killed.
Correct.
You're not going to tell your kid to do things to get killed. You're going to tell them things to do to not get killed.
Yes.
To be able to grow up and be an adult person.
Correct.
And that's why it's imperative that they not question you or you don't have to explain it. That's why every human being ever has learned one word the same way. You know what word that is?
What's that?
Hot.
That's true, because then
you don't know what hot is until you... And you see a 2-year-old when they first... they be telling you, hot, hot, hot. They telling anybody they will listen. Hot. That shit is hot. Because there's an understanding now. And then they started to get it. Maybe I should listen to you because you told me that was hot.
And now I found out
and you were right. I love you. Okay? Submission is between willing adults. Submission is consensual. Let's break it down into like BDSM. That's why they have safe words, because it is very rough and aggressive. And if the person feels that it's getting outside of their bounds of being pleasurable or entertaining, they say the safe word and everything ceases. Okay? But there's a willingness. There's a consensual agreement that I'm going to do everything you tell me to do. And guess what? Men like that. They might not necessarily want to put you in a dog collar or beat you or put nip rings on you or nip clamps or whatever it is. We don't want to go super high right now, but that's not even the point. But men learn through age and maturity and wisdom. That's why you see men pick differently as they get older and mature. It's because they understand eventually you can't trust a woman that won't submit to you.
Ooh, so we've got a request here. Our sponsor, Sterling Sages, sent a request, and when your sponsor sends a request to go live, you accept it. So we're going to go in with our sponsor. Hello to everyone's joining. So our question tonight is submission powerful. Hey, you want to introduce yourself to the folks?
Hey everyone, Joanne from Sorrel and Sage here. I just wanted to pop on really quickly because I have to go to Walmart, but I wanted to...
We do too. Right after this show.
But I wanted to hop on because Rob said something really important. And Shiva and I have talked about the notion of submission and how submission as a woman is actually a really powerful thing. So I'm going to quickly tell a story and then I'm going to piggyback on Rob's point. So when I lived in Montreal, I was actually dating someone and that relationship continued while I lived in Montreal. And he was the very first person I'd ever met who was dominant, who let me be submissive. So Shiva and I have always talked about meeting guys who just let you steamroll willy-nilly all over them. And those are not the guys that I've ever really had a lasting attraction to, because if you let me and my personality run wild, I'm going to go. And for me, that was always an unattractive thing. It's like in my head, I would do something and be like, why are you letting me do this? Like, say something, say no, put a foot down, whatever. Oh, you know, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. No, ruffle some feathers.
Please.
Some feathers, please, because that is how you learn. So I met this guy just before I moved to Montreal. And I remember our first date was at the Four Seasons. And he was already waiting for me when I got there. And we had a great time. We only did drinks. And it was a very, like, getting to know you type thing, but there was an immediate attraction. And so at the end of the night, we stayed maybe 2 or 3 hours and he had to go. He was an actor and he had a show. He was in Toronto for a stage production. And so he had to go because he had a curtain call early in the morning and leaving, and he gave me a hug. And I was like, he's like, I hope you don't mind the hug. And I was like, oh, that's okay, because I don't kiss on the first date anyway. And he kind of looked at me and he gave me this smile. And I remember this, he took my hand and he pulled me close, like he pulled me into him. And he's like, I'll make the decision when our first kiss will be.
Oh, girl, I'm sorry, my pom-pom jumped.
Like right in my ear, he's like, I'll make the decision. Had my hand like this, pulled it to him and pulled me in close. He's like, I'll make the decision as to when our first kiss will be. And I was like,
girl, trust me. Just jump.
Okay. And from there, we entered into this relationship. Now, I do have to make the distinction. It was a sexually submissive, dominant relationship, but also a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a circumstantial sub-dom. And I realized one thing about having that dynamic, 3 things. I always wanted to be with someone who I felt was as smart or smarter than me, because you're not going to learn anything from anybody who you don't perceive as intelligent. Number 1. Number 2, Rob's point, he never put me in harm's way, ever. And I mean, you know, as a dom sub in the physical realm, you get yourself in some situations, and yes, there is a safe word. But he never, whether it's crossing the street, whether it was, you know, leaving the house late at night, followed me to my car, like all of those little things that we think are a courtesy that men should do, he made sure they were always done. Number 3, he was not an emotional firecracker. So he never gave in to his emotions. And I'm not saying that he couldn't be vulnerable around me. I'm not saying that he couldn't, you know, tell me deepest, darkest secrets. I'm not saying any of that. But when the time came, there was no, what the blood clot, bomba clot, blah, blah, but like, he controlled his temper. I always knew when he was mad. I always knew when he was displeased, because it was a look, because it was the twitching of the jaw, because it was a certain change in the atmosphere. And I always knew when I'd stepped over the line. Stepped over the line. I always knew it. I could run my mouth and there would be a point where he'd be like, Joanne. And then that was it. And then I knew once I got the look, I was like, ah, crap. And I knew, right? The fourth thing was generous of spirit, of time. Not necessarily money. It doesn't, like, he would give me gifts every now and then, but it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about any of that, but it was his time. He gave me his time. His time was a gift to me.
Mhm.
And I, in turn, made sure that I let him know how much I appreciated that time. So I did things like I said, he was an actor. He was on stage 6 days a week. He had one day off. So I do things like iron his clothes. I would do things like get his dinner ready. I would do things like set the table, which are things that I do anyway. But with him, it was like, I need to make sure that this man's life is easy. Be his peace, because he brought me a lot of peace in the way that he carried himself. I never had to worry about him making me look foolish. I remember we went to a Christmas party, and he knows his limit. He wasn't a big drinker either. He had 2 gin and tonics, and he sat in the corner and he smiled. And I was like, "Are you good?" He's like, "Oh, baby, I'm great." He goes, "But make sure I don't have anything else." He goes, "Because I'm about to act a fool off these gin and tonics." But it was like knowing his limits, knowing his boundaries, all of those things. I remember he met my friends, and he made sure he remembered everybody's name. He remembered little details about them. He'd be like, "Okay, so I'm going to meet Toshiba and Rob today. So Toshiba is the one that what? And Rob does this." And then he would make sure. You know what I mean? Like, he was a man. Like a man. And that relationship, it was about 7 or 8 months, and then he had to move back to New York. And that was hard, because I knew that I had met someone very special. And those are kind of the benchmarks I look at now. Like, how do you carry yourself?
Mhm.
How do we traverse this world together? How do I make your life better? How do you make my life better? How am I going to make you look? How are you going to make me look? Right? Are we working as a unit, or are we working, as Rob said, independently? Are we working autonomously and together, or are we working independently? And his thing was always, it's you and me, baby. Like, whatever he did, wherever he went, whatever it was, it's you and me, baby. Right? And we did talk about future, and there were a couple other things. I couldn't move to New York, and that was the big thing. That was the factor that ended our relationship. I couldn't move to New York, but it was definitely something that left an impression, right? And when people talk about submission, they usually think about, leather whips and chains and all that.
Yes.
Which is a good time on a Friday night, as far as I'm concerned. Which is a fantastic time on a Friday night, but it's not going to happen with just any Joe Schmo.
That's that.
Right? It is going to happen with somebody who has those benchmarks, who has those qualities, right? And I find sometimes, like, I know women, I have friends who are married, and they submit to their husbands, and I'm like, what are you submitting to this ding dong for?
Not the ding dong.
The ding dong, right? So it's looking for those levels, and a woman who knows herself is not just going to give her control to a ding dong.
Because it's not blind submission.
Right.
Right? And there's a difference between understanding the value of the man that you have. And again,
Right.
Rob commands it. He doesn't
Right.
demand it. There is a difference. His
Exactly.
presence commands it.
And that's
nobody
another
in
thing.
his presence, and you're not just like, okay.
It's innate. And that
Yep.
was the other thing about this gentleman. Same thing. He would walk into a room. He was 6'2". He was handsome, beautiful build, everything about him, but also very charming, and not and effortlessly so, right? It didn't feel like it was forced. It didn't feel like he was making people try to like him. You just did. He sat in a corner, and people would just be like, do I know you? Are you? Can I?
Every room we enter.
Right? And I love that, because the other thing too, it allowed me to step back into a role where I'm comfortable. I like observing, right? I like watching and seeing how the couple over there is interacting, or how the single lady at the bar is sitting. I like to know that, I'm looking at Rob and Toshiba across the room, and Rob's drink is almost done. So if I'm hosting a party, I'm going to go and I'm going to tend to Rob, hey, look, you need to top up. I'm going to let my man in his glory do his thing. socialize and network and do all of the other things. And I may be in the background going, well, that's Robin Toshiba, and they're the CEOs of Stevenson Worldwide. So you need to know that XYZ, and they're about to sign a deal. And don't you know someone who can do this and that? And be like, okay, good, good, good. Maybe Google on his phone really quickly and be like, hey, Rob, how are you? You know what I mean?
And how powerful is that?
And it was...
How valuable are you as a partner, as a significant other, as a wife in that person's life?
Empowering, because it felt like we were doing something together, right? Like we were on a trajectory together. And again, even though it ended, it made such an impact on my brain, because I'm like, this is where I need to aspire to. Like, this is where I need to be. And this is who I am in a relationship. Like, I finally figured it out, dating ding-dongs. And dating ding-dongs and all these people who never quite understood me and what it was that I was trying to accomplish with them, you know? And to have someone just come to me and in my soul just be like, I get it. It's you and me, baby. And that was like the most comforting and empowering thing, because I never had to worry. I never had to worry about anything, right? Whether it was about myself or himself, because together it was a thing.
And I used to say to people, the 3 words that matter to me the most are not I love you, it's I got you.
I got you.
I got you.
I got
and
you.
I sit here beside this man every single day knowing that he got me. And so, again, it's not blind submission.
No.
Submit to him because at the end of the day, I know he's going to lead us down the path. But just like you said, every move that's made, I'm in the background whispering to him about, okay, well, this and then that. And I mean, this is literally like when his, you know, that his interviews, I make the notes. Yes. I know who's supposed to be who. Everything. When we're out into the world, if we're at certain things, he's gonna know that I know to be like, babe, what's that? Okay, great. Let me go deal with that. I feel empowered in that role because I understand my impact on the empire that we're building.
It's that part, right? And you know the saying, behind every great man is a great woman. They don't say that for nothing.
They changed it to apparently beside, and I don't want to be beside you because if I'm gonna want you in front of me.
And you know, at the end of the day, too, it's like
facts.
What are you doing?
I don't want to be beside you.
At the end of the day, the woman has to be comfortable in that, because not every woman is comfortable in that role. But I think too, if women met more of men who were in that, because here's the other thing too, a guy who is a dominant is not just gonna be like, me man, you woman, you listen to me, you do what I say. Like a true man of that stature in that scope is not going to tell you.
He doesn't demand it.
He's not going to tell you, well, I'm a dominant and you're going to be my submissive and this is how it is. He's not going to tell you. You just, you know, right? And like I said, from that first date where he was like, I'll tell you when our first kiss will be. And I was like, oh.
I felt it in my core.
Well, damn, you know? And from then, it really set the tone of the dynamic, because that was the only time he really mentioned it. And I realized that, okay, I am with someone very different.
And this is the last question I'm going to ask, because I know you got to go. Didn't you feel more entrenched in your femininity?
Well, here's the thing. I usually do, because you know me. Like, yeah. I'm a nurturer. I'm a carer. Even if I have to, like, tell you something that's hard, I'm going to say it with love. I'm going to smother you with love always. You know, I'm a sensitive soul. I'm a sensitive soul who runs a skincare company for sensitive souls. That's just who I am. It's a word I've heard all my life. So really for me, taking that role is first nature, but there are times, there is a very type A alpha side in me. And when I meet somebody who's equally as squishy, it's just like, really? Do we both have to be emotional? This is why I don't date Libra men. And I'm sorry if any Libra men are listening to this right now. This is why I don't date Libra men. The energy is the same. It's sweet, but it's not what I need. It's too insular. It is not at all what I need. So for me, it's finding someone who actually enjoys my feminine energy, who knows what to do with that feminine energy, who's not just looking at it as, you know, I'm soft or whatever. It's someone who understands how to use that to his advantage.
And it's not using it to manipulate you.
No.
And I think that's a lot of fear that women have, whether or not they're going to be manipulated by the man in their life. But again, that's because they are just dating any Joe Schmo. That man hasn't shown them.
He hasn't, and he hasn't developed his emotional maturity. That's the other thing, right? Because when he's reactive, it's like, maybe you need to do a little sit down and some shadow work and find out why that triggered you. You know what I mean? But that it's a very important distinction to make too. It's like, you can tell him something and he understands that it's a correction and not a criticism, right? It's like all of those things. And at every step, I've always just been the one to like, I want to smooth things over. I don't want to cause ruffles. I don't want to aggravate. I want to advance. You know what I mean? And sometimes you have to have the hard conversations, even with a man at that level. But if he is confident and what's the word I'm looking for? Evolved in who he is, then he's going to hear it. He might not like it. He's not going to like it, but he understands
every time.
That if I'm telling you this, there is a reason, you know, to help you become a better leader.
Yeah, that's the key.
And I think men
understand he's a
leader. If
leader.
They step out of their ego, they understand that if a woman, and delivery is everything, right? So for me, it's always a very gentle conversation. But if you step out of ego and just listen to what she's saying, if it's delivered from a place of love, you know she's telling you this to make you a better man and not to tear you down. So that's always been my role in a relationship. Like when I can find a space where I'm allowed to do that, then that's always where I am.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for coming out. Enjoy Walmart.
Yeah, thank you.
Get some bun and cheese before the store closed down.
Right.
Put some bun and cheese in the Walmart.
Make some notes for our sponsor, Sterling Sage. Make sure you check them out, Sterling Sage CA on Instagram and shop sterlingsage.com.
I don't know how to exit out of this thing. So.
Just press the X button.
Okay, bye.
Bye. So,
all right.
Go ahead, babe.
There was a reason I was really quiet in that segment, and that ladies, they just gave you a master class, like on how to get better results. As I was saying before she came on, if you're not willing to submit to him, he doesn't really trust you. And that's facts. Because he already knows when the fork in the road comes, chances are y'all going separate ways. You did?
Yes. And again, ladies, how do you determine if you are trying to both, you can't have co-CEOs. No. You understand? Like, I don't know if anybody has ever been in a company where they're co-CEOs. Have you? Like, exactly. There's no co-coaches. You played basketball on several teams. Was there a co-coach or was there a head coach and an assistant coach?
There's very little co in
any business.
Anything that decisions have to be made. And
a relationship is something in which decisions have to be made.
That's
right? And because, again, we will say over and over again, a relationship is still a business structure. It is. Things need to move. The idea of a relationship is to keep moving, getting better, and advancing. And in that, decisions need to be made. You can't always be the one. You can't say, okay, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Nothing's ever going to get done. There has to be an understanding that there's a conversation. You might have two different opinions about what to do, and someone's going to make the decision.
I mean, I agree with you. I can go on and on. It's an operation. There are procedures. There's processes. There's policies. You might not want to use those words, but they're in a relationship whether you have them established or not. And if you don't have them established, chances are they just up in the air, and that's why shit is kind of willy-nilly. I think the less you leave up to chance in a relationship, the less likely you are to end up in some crazy place. And here's the thing about it. When a man gets to a certain point in his life, he starts looking at women like this. I'm going this direction. A woman that's going to go there with me, it's her job to stay on the boat. It's like it's a giant tanker boat. You know how hard them things are to turn direction in? It takes hours to turn things around and stuff like that. They go in a set direction. That's why the path is very clear. They stick to it. They go on down it. Now, when you submit to him, you're going to always be on that boat.
Agreed.
Because where he go, you go. Now, we don't like to hurt feelings. We've already covered that. And we don't like to give up punani either. So when a man senses you're not submitting, he's cool. He's going to keep going his direction until y'all get to that fork in the road. He already knows you're going to go your separate direction. And that's when he's kind of like, it is what it is. Nice to know you.
Perfect. So I'm going to read this distinction again, and then I'm going to read what Princess Shelley Love has to say. And this is what I liked about this very last point again, when it talks about the difference between submission and obedience. It says, unlike in obedience, where the individual succumbs to power merely as a reaction to power, in submission, the individual's reaction is guided by genuine desire to follow instructions. Before I get to my next point, let me again read Princess Shelley Love, because I do love that picture here. So Princess Shelley Love says, I was thinking this today. I swear I'm reflecting on 2 relationships. I knew of the merge, I knew of the merge based on many factors before love. I remember one person saying it was about the dowry. Let me say something that we were talking about when we were thinking about this topic. What do people think the most powerful role in an organization is? I'm just going to give it a couple seconds. If you were to think of an organization, there's the CEO, there's the vice president, there's the directors, there's the managers, and then there's all the other employees mixed together. Who do you think holds a ton of power in that company? I'm just going to give the answer. We were talking about it. It's the administrative or executive assistant, I'm not quite sure what their title is these days, of the CEO. So the administrative assistant / executive assistant of the CEO tends to have a ton of power in an organization. And that woman generally is one of the sweetest, most feminine people you will ever meet. I have found them to be just genuine. Like, if they're an older lady, they'll be the ones who bring the cookies for the office, but they have a lot of control. They're the one who has the CEO's ear for everything, because just like our sponsor said previously about observing, they're the ones who sit and they observe everything that's going on. So guess when you are supposed to get a promotion, however, the CEO doesn't realize that people don't like you and that the people in the office don't have the respect for you. Even though you're doing the job that the CEO wants you to do, there isn't a respect. So move you into a role that you're a director or so forth, and you're going to be leading that ship. She's like, I'm not sure, Robert. I don't think that I'm going to explain to you why. And then you're like, oh my God. No. And then she'll say, such and such, well, may be a better fit. And this is why, because she's got that ear. And she generally, again, is the most feminine and beautiful. And not even beautiful. Like, again, it's generally like I've seen a lot of old ladies, and they're generally with the CEO for the longest time. Administrative assistants generally aren't like going through churn, right? Like, they've had the same, because they've got to trust them. And they build this relationship.
When the CEO leaves, they leave.
They leave. Generally, and they will take them with them to the next company.
He's like, I already got my Susan.
Right, and they'll go with them. And if the CEO retires, generally she's retiring, right? And so, why do we think that is? Like, why do we truly think that is? Go ahead, Ben.
Well, first let me say, audience, we love y'all. I got so many friends and family calling me right now, and I'm like, y'all should be watching. You can talk to me right here. I'm on Instagram right now. Like, why are you calling?
Why are you calling?
Like, why do you think I'm picking up right now? I may be forgetting the time. Like, I don't know. But anyway, So we stated, when you don't submit to a man, he don't trust you, right?
Correct.
Here's the caveat to that.
I'm ready.
When you submit to a man, you gain influence.
Ooh.
Influence is power.
Ooh.
Again, old school relationship movie. Some of y'all might not know it, but My Old Big Fat Greek Wedding. They got a lot of gems in that movie. And one of it, the granny was saying to the young bride, the man is the head, but the woman is the neck.
Correct.
And the neck can turn the head.
Fact.
And that is facts. Your influence can turn your man off of a position if you're making sense, if you've gained that place with him. And the only place to get that is by submitting to him, because no man wants a woman and he doesn't feel like listens to him.
So I'm just going to open up the question that who's the most influential woman in your life? Don't even.
I think we all know the answer.
It's me.
It's clearly there's so much. Look, I'm able to, it's like a computer. I'm able to dedicate more processing power over here because I no longer have to put any towards certain other things. There's a lot of aspects of my life that I'm able to kind of delegate to her, and she handles them swimmingly. And there's also things that she delegates to me, like the bills.
I laugh. It's not funny, but it's like I laugh.
Deal with those. It's a give
And
take. It's a win-win. It's not a win-loss. But again, like Joanne was saying, when you date ding-dongs and you submit to them, they do stuff like, yeah, fly down to Mexico, get this package, put it in your hoo-ha, and fly back.
Yeah, that's not a main one to submit to.
Not your guy, because rule number one of the Dom sub relationship is never put you in harm's way. So this guy obviously don't care about you.
Yeah.
Because if you get jammed up in that situation, he'll be like, I really miss you.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah, he's not about to come and put no money on your books. He's moved on to the next girl.
Unfortunately, and that's what I'm like, not every guy is a good man. I'll be the first one to say that. You know what I'm saying? I'll be the first one to say that. But too many of y'all pick men that other men don't even have no real.
And I think that was the key when you said that, right? And I think as much as, the world gives Uncle Kevin, a bad rap, one of the things that he talks about high value men is that other men see him. It's not that women, because women don't define high value the same way. They see it as money. A man makes 6 figures and whatever, lives in a nice condo, drives a nice car, he's of high value, and that's not fact. Other men need to respect you, to be like, if you're in the streets and other men don't respect you, they're going to take over your territory. But when they respect you, no, that's the border. That's how that is. It's the same thing. Other men need to respect that man of value. So if you're dating a man and other men, he doesn't have other men around him that respect him and see him of value, that's a clear indication that might not be the one. That's not, if you're looking to be in this submissive, entrenched in your femininity, all of that. If other men are looking at him and saying, nah, sis, run. Because the respect that men are looking for aren't from women, it's from other men. And if they can't get that naturally from other men, why should you give it to it? Like, I see how other men are around you. I see how strangers, we walk in the door, other men, we had a gentleman come up to him. Where was he from? Algeria? Or,
oh, yeah, furniture store.
Yeah, like we were going to we were furniture, home decor shopping, and people come up to him. There's just all of these things that happen. I watch how other people react to him. It's not just about what I do, it's how other people see him. It's when he walks into a room, the air he has. That's the things that, again, as women, we need to be looking at. What he do, I'm sure he did the same for me. How do I act when I walk into a room? How do I deal with people on that first date? How does your date deal with the wait staff? How do they deal with the busboy that comes and picks up the water? Like, these are things that you need to be looking at. And I don't think people do that enough, right? Again, you're auditioning. If you were an asshole to even the wait staff or the busboy or the person, the hostess, like all of that, I'm like, ew, no, like, I don't want that type of energy. If I was a person who was the same way, like I'm snapping at the waitress or waiter to come by and just doing all of that stuff, you'd be like, that's not somebody I want in my orbit. There's a certain level that you need to be at to even get to anything close to this idea of submission is power.
It's a concept that ain't even really all that new, man. You can almost translate it into to different aspects of life. It's like kindness is almost considered like submission these days.
Ooh, smiling.
In a everybody hurt world, be careful, clutch your pearls, stay away from your neighbors, put 3 deadbolts on your lock as world where everybody is out to harm you or hurt you or take something from you. Kindness is considered a weakness.
Smiling is considered. Not even kindness, it's smiling.
Here's the thing. When you don't live your life with those type of vulnerabilities, you pretty much guarantee you're gonna die alone. Like, who's gonna give a fuck about you when you're gone if you don't? Like, that's the thing. You know how you can tell if a guy's husband quality? Who does he take care of? Like, who does he provide for? Like, most good dudes, if they got $100, it's somebody getting at them for a couple of them dollars. Does he give it up? Or does he hold on to it? Because where I come from, men provide for people. There's a lot of people that are looking at you with mouths open, like, and it ain't just your kids and your woman. So that's men respect. You know what men really respect also? Being who you say you are. The little mousy nerd guy gets respect for being who he says he is. He gets protection from the bully. Because the bully actually respects, he got his nose in a book all the time. Leave him alone.
That's part. Being who you say you are. And I think that was a big thing for you, is I showed up always like as myself. Like there was no, and throughout being together, living together, there's been Shiva is Shiva.
Look, everybody say who they are, but if you've been around them long enough, either it adds up or it don't. And when it don't add up, I just find myself, eventually I gravitate away. Because
to me, again, coming in feminine doesn't mean you're submitting. And I want to distinguish that for the women. You should always be feminine in a relationship.
What's the sorority that wears the pink and the pearls?
Oh my God, I don't know. That's an American thing. You know,
but they feminine, but a lot of them is not submissive at all.
Because there is a difference. You should come in as feminine.
They smell like Chanel.
I don't know what they smell like. I'm sure you know what they smell like.
Yeah, I mean, but what? Boss chick. What are you talking about?
Well, Espancha says, and seeing parts of themselves that you don't necessarily like but accept. So you should come into a relationship feminine. You're not coming in naturally submitting to every man, right? And that's not what that means. It's not blind obedience. That's how you guys are looking at this idea. This is why we liked this picture. This picture is a depiction of the word. When you, like for Black women, you hear the word submission or submissive or submit, and it's like, I am a strong, independent woman. I ain't gonna do that. And what kind of man wants me to do that? And who am I? Da, 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 da. And it's like, you know, that's the sororities, Alpha, Kappa, Alphas.
Yep. And I was just thinking, like, that's kind of, I think, where women's masculinity comes from, is that, because every girl is submissive to her first boyfriend.
That's true.
Am I lying?
That's true.
Your first boyfriend, you did whatever the dude said. And then you did you dirty. And now I won't do as much is when the next guy says it.
And you keep taking
and
all.
every time a dude hurts you or a relationship
You take off
you
something.
cut away at how much you're willing to submit. So eventually, you just another dude.
Now, speaking of another dude, we are going to play what Cam Newton had to say in this last part of the show that had women going crazy. And if you haven't heard this, let me tell you something. Let me just start. Hold on, give me 1 second. Let me go back.
What they deem is a boss chick. Now, a woman for me is handling your own, but knowing how to cater to a man's needs, right? And I think a lot of times when you get that aesthetic of like, oh, boss, she's like, I want this, I'm a dad. No, baby, like, but you can't cook. Okay. You don't know when to be quiet. You don't know how to allow a man to lead. There it go.
Yeah, there's a couple of points he said. One is, I think that's really what ruffled the feathers when he said cater to a man's needs.
What actually ruffled a lot of women's feathers is the fact that he said you don't know how to be quiet.
That was the next point. Those two things, there's a whole legion of females out there that found that very
offensive
because they don't know. Hit dogs holler, man.
As a woman, I'm gonna tell some of y'all, you need to shut the F up.
Right.
Shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Learn how to shut your
I
mouth.
repeat it. If I go outside and throw a rock, whoever screams, ah, is the person I hit with it.
I'm done with you. You are literally that child that was the most annoying child ever. No, but I'm speaking as a woman. There are some women who need to just shut that F up. Shut up. Shut your mouth. Thank you. Thank you, Carmone. She's saying, I'm learning. Yes, learn quick. Learn quick. Here's the thing. Let me top it. I used to say to people in the corporate world, I spent 2 decades in the corporate world, working my way up, sitting at tables. Who cares? Not important. This is the only table that matters right now. But the thing I learned that was really important is this. When your mouth is closed, your ears are open. And the information that I was able to receive to then pass on to people that I advise in business and to deal with my home has made a huge impact in where we will be in the next 3 to 5 years. That information, the things that I'm able to do for you, babes, the things that I will learn, is because I sat at these tables with powerful people, usually powerful men, and I was quiet. You've seen me with my mentors. When I have those conversations with them, I tend to absorb and I'm listening and I'm taking in. And I take those things to make our life better. But when you're constantly speaking, how do you learn anything? How do you absorb anything? You're always talking, so you're never listening. And there's an old saying for people who do not know, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Now, Duke Nation is saying, do you think a lot of women have lost their ability to be submissive due to the fact that they are now making more money than some of the men they meet or date?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because
I think that's one of the biggest factors in that is that I've experienced this personally. I've literally heard, I make more so I should get to spend more. And obviously that relationship didn't last. And here's the thing, like, I don't even really think that's genuine, if that's that hurt and that need to be right and whatnot, you know what I mean? Like, there's no, okay.
First of all, let me start. There was no foundation of respect in that relationship if the money was the source of control, right? Money should never be a source of control in any relationship. And I think a lot of women think that being in a position where I am, where he's the breadwinner and I support him and I submit to him or whatever, when we make the rounds and go viral, people think of the dynamic of our relationship. The interesting part is we've got equal power. In some ways, I actually have more power in this relationship than any other relationship when I was making big dollars because of my influence, because of the fact that when we're making decisions, they're decisions together. Yes, ultimately the final decision is his, but we come to and we sit down and we have this discussion and we weigh the pros and cons and we talk about the impact for both of us. But I always go, what is it for you? Because you're the one on the trajectory. You're the one on this track. You're the one on this thing. So what does it look like? What does it look like for you? And what adjustments do I have to make no matter what the decision is, right? To me, I'm in a very powerful place. But a lot of people have taken the difference between money means that I have control. And it does not mean that. Rob doesn't hold the money he makes over me and says, well, I control you. So Sorlin Sage has responded, sorry, babe, that I cut you, but like you said, women need to learn that his competence has nothing to do with income. There are a lot of high-earning ting-tongs out there. That's fact. And Film Star said, I agree, Sorlin Sage.
Absolutely. Like, okay, how often do you see a manager argue with one of
The subordinate?
their subordinates?
As a manager, I don't have time for that. I'm not doing that.
What would you do?
I'm going to fire them or discipline them. There's going to be some disciplinary action, but I'm not, first of all, I'm not arguing in front of other people. And we're going to sit back and have a discussion. Like, we're not going to do that.
Like that. Okay, so occasionally you will, like in fast food is where I think mostly you see stuff like this, where you'll see a manager arguing with one of their subordinates. It says one or two things. One, that employee is crazy. And two, the manager isn't very good. Because instead of arguing, he should just fire their ass. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm saying. Dudes get to that point eventually where they understand is we control the relationships. You can't make me be in a relationship with you, Toshiba. It's a crime. They made that movie Misery where she broke the dude out.
Oh, yeah, she did. Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember that.
That's a crime. Kidnapping. If they find out, you're going to jail. You can't make a man be in a relationship with you no more than you can make a woman be in a relationship with a man. But especially again, as y'all dollars get up, y'all like to get in that man space of I'm gonna go find me a man, I'm gonna go pick me a man, and you've already stepped outside of your feminine.
Women should never be choosing. Like, we're not the choosers. We get chosen. Jamaicans have a saying, you pick until you pick shit. Okay? Like, women should be out there. I know. And it's not about having pick me energy and, oh, Rob, find me, look at me. The reality is when you carry yourself in a manner that man finds is something he wants to be a part of his life, he will come out and get you. You don't need to, yes, you should put yourself in his orbit. That is one thing I will say to ladies. If you want a certain type of man, you should be in that man's orbit. But you should be, let me tell you that if you want to be chosen, ladies in Toronto, there are plenty of bars out there, or anyone across the United States, Canada, wherever. There are plenty if you want a high value, whatever type of man. Where are they hanging out? That's where you should be. And you should not be going with your girlfriends if you're looking to meet a man. And you should not be bringing this wonderful device and doing this while you're at the bar. Your only thing you bring is your wallet and your lip gloss and your keys for your car, or whatever the case might be. You leave the phone in the car and you make yourself present and you speak to the bartender. A man who sees you in that space, again, you're not there, you're not drinking hard liquor, so you're not drinking scotch or any of that. You're drinking a nice glass of wine or something cute and girly. You're being in your whole feminine, and you're sitting there and you're looking around and you're smiling. So Prince Shirley Love said where? So in Toronto, there's an area called Yorkville. They've got all kinds of places that you can go. They've got STK, they've got Morton's, they have got the Four Seasons, they have got all kinds of high-end places to find men that hang out there. The Bisha Hotel in Toronto is one of them. It's got 2 restaurants. It's got Cost upstairs and Akira back downstairs. I know these places quite well. I used to go there myself. And you go to these places and you put yourself in a position to be in the orbit of men, but you're not sending a drink to a man. You're not doing that, but you are putting yourself to be seen.
That's all you can really do.
That's all a woman should
You're trying
do.
to put yourself in the right spot. Here's the thing. I'm gonna get on that. I want to be up there beside you. That pick me thirsty ass energy. That's basically what that is. That's basically how a man looks at it. That's basically how I sees it. And when I get selected for Man of the Year for Watermelon Growers of Arizona, whatever, and they call me up there, she is not so insecure and thirsty that she's gonna run up there with me like we just a fucking rap group or some shit like that. She understands that there's no way I am going to accept that award without acknowledging the person who allowed me to be in the place and be the watermelon grower that I was to win the fucking shit. You know what I'm saying? That's what the whole movie Malcolm and Marie was about. Was he actually forgot the most fucking important person in the whole thing, and she let his ass know it. That's the whole movie was about.
Exactly.
And so many times that thirsty and like I gotta attach myself to his hip to keep him to keep close to him. You don't have to do that, because when you make yourself valuable to him, he's looking for you. He's like, where'd you go? I was here.
Well, that's a good question, babe. If you were to give people advice, what are the things that I did? Because we can't talk for everybody else. But what are the things, let me stop there, because one of the things that Rob said that was like one of the best things I've ever heard, when he was like, you're invaluable to me. You're invaluable to me. You're not irreplaceable. Because I could go out and try, I didn't like that part. I can go out and try and find someone else, but they're never going to be you, because you're invaluable. There's no trading you in. There's no trading for better. But what are the things that you would say to a woman that I did if they were looking at trying to be in a man's life in that way and have that influence that made me invaluable? Not the kiss.
Yeah, because I'm like, it's what do you really want it for? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think every woman, first off, you got to be real with yourself. You know what I mean? And if you, and this is no disrespect to people who say didn't finish high school, say. But a person with a GED probably shouldn't set their standards for a mate at an MIT graduate.
I agree.
There's such a discrepancy that, like, of course, we see why you're attracted to the MIT graduate, but why is the MIT graduate going to be attracted to you other than you got that WAP?
Okay, you're going to go into a long thing.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying. That's
like, what did I do?
So what you did was, even before you had physically arrived, which is you let me determine who you were, so that then when we met and it aligned, I was already down that road. You can't manipulate a guy into a relationship. You can't. Why did y'all watch The Ultimatum? Because we just finished it up, and again, it doesn't always work out in the best way, because the ultimatum, ultimatums come from a place with low leverage. So that's why they're almost stupid.
Because you don't have a lot of leverage.
You don't have no leverage in the first place.
So what you're saying, because sometimes you go into Rob talk, is I showed up as myself. I was genuinely me from the beginning to the end, and here we are almost 2 years later, and I'm still me. There wasn't any discrepancy between the person you thought I was and the person who showed up in your face.
Yeah, and you had the attitude of, I was the head of the situation.
Oh, no, I was completely obsessed with it from
right
the
up
beginning.
It wasn't like it was. And I think maybe that's the recipe. If you don't like want to jump off a cliff with him, maybe he ain't for you, sis.
A lot of women are going to find that difficult.
I've said that. Like, a nigga say I'm going to the moon. She was like, when we leaving.
When we leaving, I'm packing. I'm like,
no question. She's not like, boy, you don't know nothing about the moon.
And I put that in my book because that was actually, I'm glad you brought that up because that was something that we talked about, right? And we were having a conversation about the dynamic between men and women. He was like, listen, all a man wants to do is to be able to come home to his woman and say, babe, we're going to the moon. And she says, when are we leaving? Not, what do you know about going to the moon? You just left the house this morning and you did that. And then calling your friends like, this man over here talking about we going to the moon. Like, he just wants the security to know that if he says we're going to the moon, like, I'm like, babe, what do we need? Like, what outfits am I bringing? Because I'm packing. There is no questions about that because I know he's not going to lead me astray. If he says we're going to the moon, he already has a plan. Because the part of the submission is, again, like the definition says, I'm submitting to the power, not forcefully, because I know you can lead. You're not going to lead me astray.
Well, and on the flip of that, you can be in your feminine energy, but if you still feel like you need to control his decision making, his outcomes, then you're not being a wife, you're being a mother.
Ooh.
That's what his mama should have raised him already.
Oh, no.
He should know right from wrong.
Oh, yes,
he should know how to make money. He should know how to move in this world by the time he even meets your ass. So what are you really telling him? I told you, men don't like to be told shit.
That's fact. So we'll do the same. Sometimes women ask way too much questions out loud. And that's the thing. And we're not saying that it's not to ask questions. Again, there's a difference between submission and obedience, right? However, here was a think about the scenario of a conversation. So we're just going to give you Rob has some decisions to make. There's some job offers we anticipate coming, and we talk about pros and cons of each, right? It's like the money, the opportunity, all of those different things. If he were to go with the choice that I did not think was the best choice, it probably is not the best thing for me to say. What are you thinking? Are you stupid? Well, they're not even, give me a second. They're not offering you enough money. I thought you said we were going to do. The better option might be like, babe, I respect that decision. I know it wasn't the one we thought we were going to make, but can you tell me your thinking behind that?
Yeah, because maybe I know something you don't.
That part.
That's very different. Like,
but you see the different energy? Even your response of me doing that right now was like you're visceral to the like, because again,
I get when
their words, right? Again,
gets me upset almost
instantly, right? And even though that was a big, his visceral response was like that stupid word, that whatever. It's sometimes the approach. Again, if you trust your man to lead, yes, we're not always going to agree with the decisions each other's make, but at the end of the day, if you're going to trust your man to lead, allow him to lead. So again, if Rob makes the decision, because we're both clear about right now what direction we go, but if he goes to bed or he finds some information or he gets some source and he's like, you know what, I know me and Sheba talked about it, but I'm going to lean in this way and this is why, because where we want to go in 5 years, I can actually get here in 3 with this one, but it might take me 4 with this one. If he makes that decision, all I'm asking him is, okay, so tell me your thinking behind that. Because we had agreed to go this way together, but now that you're going this way, there has to be something behind it. So it's an inquiry, not a, you're stupid. And again, sometimes we have to look at the approach that we're using with our men. And again, my role as and I don't call myself, I'm not a co-CEO of anything. I am literally like the wind beneath his wings type of thing. Like Rob always says to Sheba's always close by.
Well, here's another part what I think of is like, let's say he makes a bad decision. He's got a flawed strategy. If you shut up, and he goes back and thinks about it a little bit, he might actually uncover that on his own. And he'll be better off because of that. He doesn't need you to
point out every single flaw to your plan. Because there's a difference between that conversation of, let me know your thinking behind it. You start thinking and I'm listening, Because we had that situation, about a year ago with another job opportunity, right? Where
she didn't say nothing. Like, I was already in a position. It was taking kind of too long. When it did come around, I convinced myself that I didn't want to go that direction, right? But I said, let me think on it. I told her I wasn't going that direction. And then I drove around that night doing my thing, and I was just like, yo, bro, since when we started leaving money on the table? And I changed my mind pretty much right then and there. So when I came back, she didn't even know. She was like, oh, do I need to let them know that you're going to decline now? I was like, nah, I took it. And she was like, what? And that's when we had the conversation. Because I knew, because she didn't say anything, she truly showed me she was okay with whatever decision I made. That's how you get influence, by submitting. Now, if you would have kissed teeth, got Jamaican, oh, this job pay this much more than this job, why you don't take it, blah, 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 blah. Then the Taurus in me comes out, and I say, fuck you and that job. I'm going to stay right where I'm at.
It's so true. That's so true. But that wouldn't have made any sense, because at the end of the day, I had to trust that you were going to make the best decision for not only yourself, but for the family as a whole. Because again, we have a plan. We have a plan. And so therefore, if we have a plan and we've decided that we're going in a certain direction, he's not going to derail the full plan because you want to be stubborn and do your own thing. No, we have a plan. You're going to stay the course. We might change little minute things, but you're not going to blow up the plan. You don't understand what I'm saying? So again, submission is not to be forced. It's not willful obedience. It is power. It's because, again, submission brings influence. And I think that's the word that women, so, people getting mad at Cam Newton for you don't know when to be quiet. I find it interesting.
I bet he treats his women 10 times better than women complain.
Well, apparently women were up there in the comments saying he's a cheater and he's a this and he's a that and he's that and how dare he speak to. But a lot of these women probably also have no men and they're quick to comment. Brittany Renner went crazy because she felt.
Mrs. Newton?
I believe there is.
I don't think she objected to what he said.
That is actually a good question. I don't remember if Cam Newton is married. And while I'm doing that, we're going to reintroduce the segment of our show where we do questions. We have been moving. And so we had taken this section out of the show. But we are back. So we are at the section of the show where you can ask us questions. But if you do not ask us questions, we have our question bowl here. And no, he is not.
There's a girlfriend and kids.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Oh, a couple of baby mamas. Okay.
All right.
And maybe he was speaking from experience.
That's the best. That's the best learning, right? Is experience.
Listen, I got 2 baby mamas. If they could listen and submit, they might not be baby mamas.
And we continue. Question, please. Okay.
If you had to change one thing about yourself, what would you pick? Man, this is where my arrogance kind of comes.
Oh, Jesus, you're not going to change nothing?
I don't, man. Then you start changing one thing and you don't know it. You add here and you take it. It's got to come from somewhere else.
So you would change nothing about yourself is the answer to your question?
No, I'm not going to say that. I would say I'd be a little more tolerant. About this much more.
Okay, good to know. My turn. Because that's so hard. Okay, so my question. If you could live anywhere in the world for just 1 year, where would you live? I've heard great things about Ghana, and I hope I'm pronouncing the city where I think it's Accra in Ghana. I've heard great things about Ghana, and being Jamaican, I've already lived in Jamaica. Eventually, our ideal is to have a home in Jamaica. But I've heard Ghana has a very Caribbean Jamaican influence. And so being able to go to Africa and still have the influence of my people. So if we had a chance to live somewhere for a year, it would be Accra in Ghana.
That's what's up. I could do Africa.
No, we're definitely doing Africa. Next question.
Yeah, you gotta read this one.
Oh God, my writing's small. What's the accomplishment you are most proud of?
What we're doing right now.
Oh, babe. Thank you, because these are my brainchild. Thanks, babe.
What I'm doing right now. What I'm working on right now. This is my coup d'etat.
Your coup d'etat.
I mean, that's wrong. That's an overthrow.
Okay.
No, what is they something that grabs.
Okay, we gonna work on the different languages.
Vocabulary in English, don't know shit about nothing.
Okay, so this is actually a question that I have to ask you. In what ways have I changed since we met? Did you just kiss up your teeth?
Have you changed? You are. You haven't really changed a ton. You're more comfortable in your being annoying sometimes. That might have changed.
That's your answer. Your answer is I've gotten more comfortable in being annoying. Good night, Robert. Okay, here's your question. I got all confused. You see? That was the last one for you, and I'll get over. Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay.
I need to go get my vision check this weekend.
This is a good one. Which significant other before me had the biggest impact on you?
That's not even a legitimate. Oh no, that's your question.
No, that's your question. Which significant other before me had the biggest impact on you? You gotta answer the question. Which one of your woman them before me had the biggest impact on you?
It's hard for me to answer that because negative impact. What do you mean? Like -5 is better than -20? What the fuck? I'm sorry.
And we'll move on. Okay, this is the last question, and then we will wrap up. What movie reminds you of us? So that's actually a question for me. So the movie.
I said it already.
No, I was thinking about today when I was writing the question. The movie that reminds me of us, like the most recent one, is Queen and Slim. Or Slim and, what is it? Queen and Slim and.
You're not gangster.
I am gangster.
No.
Yes, I am.
I am. You're not.
But here's the thing: she wasn't gangster in the beginning.
Okay, true.
They understand, and then they fell in love, and it was very like Bonnie and Clyde. Yeah, like I'm a bougie gangster.
Okay.
I'm like a boo gangster, like Louis Vuitton gangster.
Okay.
So it's Queen and Slim. That was the movie, right? Queen and Slim.
I like Malcolm and Marie better.
Oh my God, yes, Malcolm and Marie.
That's awesome.
That is not. Let me change my answer. I'm wrong. You are right. It's Malcolm and Marie. Malcolm and Marie, probably in recent time, is a movie that reminds. And if you haven't watched Malcolm and Marie, do it. That's kind of, we can do this back and forth thing, but we're still gonna love and hold and get and whatever.
Yeah, I don't think they broke up.
No, they didn't break
They
up.
left it for interpretation. I don't think they broke up.
So Duke Nation says, hey, sometimes that negative impact makes you better.
For sure.
It did give you but here's the thing, I got a better version of you.
Yeah, sometimes you like to play with it and act.
I do sometimes like to play with it.
Sometimes, she's female. She is. It's a natural. I think estrogen just does stuff to y'all sometimes, but nah, she's. I think that I'm a better man because of what I went through, and I wasn't always this man. Like I'm very close to it, but I think sometimes like you mistake the sternness as like a lack of care or affection, but it's actually the opposite of that. Is I care so much that I'm not gonna let you fuck us up.
There we go. Princess Shirley loves this. She wants to be gangster. And Shelly has known me since high school, so we're going almost 3 decades. Leave me alone, bruh, okay? So listen, everyone. We think submission is powerful. However, we don't think as a woman you submit to every man, because not every man carries himself as a leader. You can only submit to a leader, and you can't have two leaders. And if you are a woman who doesn't have the ability to submit, then you need to be with a man who doesn't require submission in their relationship. Just like we always say, if you don't believe in gender rules, then do not get with someone who believes in gender rules. If you see submission as a bad thing, then do not get into a relationship with someone who believes you should submit. For us, the submission that I have is powerful because, again, you cannot have co-CEOs. And a relationship is a business. It is still a business. And again, you audition for your place in that person's life, just like you are auditioning every time you go on your job and you do an exceptional work on a project that you've been assigned because you want to get to that next level. It's the same thing in a relationship. We decide when to give up the pum-pum. They decide when to give us the ring. That's just how relationships work. A man is not going to decide to give you the ring until he thinks you're worthy. So for women who say, I'm not going to do wife duties while being a girlfriend, that's all good. Well, you're never going to move from a girlfriend to a wife. Because how will he know if you'll be suited to be a wife unless you're displaying wifely qualities? So again, we're here to change the conversation around Black relationships. And we really need to be having these conversations, and we need to take out of our vocabulary as Black women that being submissive or submission or submit is a bad word. It is not slavery. Okay, our grandmothers didn't have it wrong when they submitted to our grandfathers. They actually had it quite right. They were more than happier than we were with less resources. Money does not make us powerful, and it does not give us control. And if you want control in a relationship with a man, you need to really assess why that is. I grew up with a daddy who I saw being in control, and I wanted a man just like my daddy, and I found one like my daddy because I had someone who modeled for me what it meant to be a leader and what it meant to protect and provide, and that was important. And so as women, if you're not willing to take the passenger seat of a relationship, you need to consider why that is and maybe do some inner work.
Word. And like, you try something different. Try trading that independence for some freedom. Let a man take care of you. Let a man that wants to take care of you take care of you. Not one that you're going to try to make take care of you. And submit so you can get some power and influence. Because you're not going to have none of that shit in his life until you submit.
You like drops mic. I wish I can't drop our mic for real. So I want to thank everybody for joining. If you have any suggestions for any topics, feel free to reach out to us in our DM or email us at fyftheshow@gmail.com. And again, a big shout out to our sponsor, Joanne, who was on earlier. She runs Sorrel & Sage. You can find them on Instagram at Sorrel & Sage CA and shop sorrelandsage.com. And as usual, my advice to you is to bring a bit of fuck your feelings into your relationship and into your week. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Peace.